Las Vegas.
Good afternoon.
Imagine for me that you held a magnifying glass out in front of you in your life.
And imagine that you had a choice what you focused that magnifying glass on, what I like to call the 90%, the positive aspects of your life, or the not so positive 10%.
So in our time together until 10:30, I'm going to ask you, what do you focus on?
What do you focus on?
So let's give you a snapshot of our time. When we talk about your role, what you've chose to do here, have you ever met anyone who complains? Have you ever met anyone who complains in your community at a meeting? No. I'm intrigued by how you would choose this. For many of you, you have added yet another thing to your life, another thing to your role, and then we choose that, and then we go out into the world, out into our community, and we complain about it. So I want to talk about what we focus on and how that ripples out to be building the dynamic communities that you want. Then we'll talk about those around you. I'm sure you'd agree with me, a negative person can bring down the community, right? What do we do with the one or two? Because we all have one or two. We all have one or two that show up at the meeting and you think, oh, you. We all have one or two that you look at the call display and say, not Monday. Why you Monday? So what do you do with the one or two? I'm going to offer some tools. Then we'll talk about me, your citizen, your resident. Who do you focus on? I don't think the customer is always right. I think 10% of the time they're cranky and unreasonable. But where do we give our power? Who do we talk about? And then I'm going to talk about when we go home at the end of the day. Because I don't know why you would do this, but I do what I do up here probably for the same reasons you do, to make a difference. And I don't know if you've been guilty of this, but I've been guilty of giving 90% up here in this thing I call my job, and going home and giving my family my leftover 10%. So I want to talk about a tool that we use in our home to make sure that when you get home after the meeting and they say, how was the meeting? You say it was great. We go to these motivational sessions and we're totally motivated till at least tomorrow. And we put everything in the conference file. You know the file, the one in the desk that every conference you go home and you put it all in there and your intentions are good, and then we don't do it. So to carry the 90% theme forward, it's one idea, one concept. You don't see a lot of running in service these days. Running by us, jumps in his paratransit vehicle. 10 minutes later, he's back. We are captive. Magazines down. We watch him. Wheels out his second client, his second patient, this elderly woman who had to have been in 101. Wheels her past us. She's got her floral dress and her orthopedic hose and her purse clutched on her lap with her gloved hands. Blue hair done to perfection. Wheels her past us in the waiting room, up to the counter of employees who look like they've never seen him before, and announces, "Excuse me, Mrs. Beechwood is here to see you." As if to say, give someone else's grandmother and the woman who built our community the respect she deserves. And he got down on one knee, took her gloved little hand in front of all of us in the waiting room, kissed her hand, and said, "Gorgeous, I'll be back in an hour to pick you up." And he went running. We're all crying. Ah! I thought, what a choice he makes to get up in the morning and say, I can only control me. Jada and John and I are shopping, and the woman that's helping me in this retail store looks so familiar to me. And her name tag is Janet. She's running around this whole retail store. She's playing peekaboo with my children in the fitting rooms, and it hits me. It's the teacher from the Teachers in Service. I said, Janet, what the heck are you doing here, helping me in this store? She said, oh, that. I taught for a year and I hated it, so I quit. Yeah, okay. So I said, good for you. It takes courage to quit something you don't love. She said, that is not what my parents who paid for the education had to say. So as I was leaving with my Jada and John, I said, Janet, one more thing. Thank you. Thanks for not teaching my children and their children with an attitude that you don't want to be there for the next 35 years of your life. Because what you focus on ripples out to your community. You want to create a dynamic community, create a dynamic man and woman in the mirror. Because what you focus on, if you see the 10, we all have 10, every community, village, town, city has 10. But if that's all you see and that's all you talk about, it affects your soul. And then you wonder, am I making a difference? Because if I asked you why you wanted to do this, you'd say, because I wanted to make a difference. And then it ripples out to our staff, because they can tell when we don't really, truly live our message. And then it ripples to our clients. I've run many businesses, and I'll tell you, when I call them in my office and say, Laura, you're rocking everybody's world. She says, they got a problem with me, and I got a problem with them. What's their problem? They rarely know that they're the problem. So what do you do with them? Well, I've been challenged by this for years as a motivator. What do you do with people who are unhappy? So here's what I've learned. I learned that I can't change them. I can only change me. So when I'm on the road, he's in charge. 36 hours a week, he digs in and does the Mr. Mom thing. And he doesn't do it very well. So I have to really try hard to practice my message. Because when I'm gone, it's kind of like wardens away, right? They call it Dadder Day. So they have all kinds of, I can't even get a hold of them when I'm at it. And the teachers always say, I can always tell when you're out of town. What does that mean? So they go and have a great time because it's fun. And then I go on the road and schlep and drive and carry books and get home, and sometimes I'm depleted. So I came home last summer and I was complaining to my husband, who looked up from the deck and said, oh, you've already come home and complained 3 times, you're done. So I laid that sucker out, not Darren, but the problem. And I thought, oh my God, he's right. Do I know this? Oh my Lord, for 20 years I know this. I write it, I preach it, I interview it, but am I going home a different woman than you see up here? We can't do that. We can't be all we are to the people in our communities, put on this great show, and then go home and be somebody different.